Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of NC-17. My name is Josh, and today we have a very renowned actor who's been in a plethora of things. Some are more notable because of just the horror and violence, but we have Mr. C. Ernst Harth with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Josh.
It's my honor, my friend. Trust me. Uh, so we're going to get into your movies and just the projects you've worked with, but kind of take us back a little bit. As a child, was movies and kind of what you were always aiming to do, or did it just kind of happen out of nowhere?
Yeah, it's funny. As a kid, you grow up, you watch cartoons, you watch movies and TV, but beyond the entertainment fact of it, you never really even know that that's a career. You don't know that that's something you can do. Those people live in the TV. Those people live at the movie theater. As far as Hollywood or whatever, that concept doesn't even exist. So it doesn't even come into play until you're slowly presented with options. Like, for example, when I went to this one school, it was K to five, kindergarten to grade five. I was in kindergarten, and I was asked by the school if I'd like to be in the Christmas pageant that year. And I was sure, okay. I didn't really know what that meant because, this was my first year in school. But as it turned out, the school had a tradition back then where they would put the largest kid in the school, he would play Santa Claus in the Christmas pageant. And usually the largest kid in the school was grade four or grade five, right? Here I am in kindergarten, and I get asked if I want to play Santa Claus in the Christmas pageant because I'm already the largest kid in the school in kindergarten. And being in the play, as you know, it was like me and a bunch of grade fours and grade fives. So I already felt like the king of the castle sitting in my little throne with all of these grade fours and fives. But sitting there and watching the people and watching the clapping and everything, it was like the first time I was in the reverse. I wasn't in the audience. I was in the thing that they were watching. And that was the first time that feeling of, oh, I like this. I like people watching me. I like this. It goes to the, always seeking attention at home. You're always trying, you're always doing silly things, trying to get your parents' attention or whatever. But uh, that was the first time I realized in kindergarten when I was put in that position that, wow, you, you can do this. I didn't like it never even occurred to me that that was a thing. So then throughout school, I did school plays, school assemblies. I did all that. Then later on in high school, a friend of mine and we put together a little improv group. We would do little like whose line is it anyway, kind of improv games and stuff. And we would go once a week. We'd go to different um, old age homes, nursing homes in the neighborhood, and we would do little improv games with the seniors all sitting around, usually in their wheelchairs or some sitting on chairs and stuff. And it was basically to put a smile on their face because so many of them they're just sitting there waiting to die. Even as a teenager, it was sad knowing that you're the only visitor that a lot of them get. So getting to put a smile, and it was basically, doing sound effects and getting them to be a robot and all this kind of stuff. And it was just being silly, but it helped with the desire to perform, but it also just, the joy of putting a smile on people's face. And I think as I've gotten older, especially throughout high school, that was for me the bigger part of it was, yeah, I like the performing part of it, and I like the adulation and the applause, but truthfully, I just like making people smile. I think that's why I always sort of have a smile on my face because I like to be a happy person. I like to go through life, with a smile on my face. If I'm on a movie set and it's 3:30 in the morning and we've been there for 18 hours, I'm usually the idiot in the corner tap dancing, trying, trying to make people laugh and smile because it's just life is better with a smile. And that's basically, plus, when you come from a dysfunctional home or you come from anywhere where there's some sort of, there's issues at home or there's trouble, you just try to put on a happy face and not not deal with the home life, you know. So being on stage, especially as a kid, was a way to live my own life and be my own characters because, you know, the little version of me that lives at home, there might be issues for him at home, but this character that I'm playing, he doesn't have any of those issues. So I get to be that person. And throughout high school, it was just more of that. And then when school ended, I still never even realized that this was, it never occurred to me that I could do this as a job. But I got on a bus and I went across Canada because I live in Vancouver, BC right now. But this was back in Ontario, Canada, and a friend of mine, and we got on a bus one day, didn't know what to do, and we went on a Greyhound for 4.5 days, traveled across Canada, came to Vancouver because he had been here before, and uh, we got here and it was like, okay, now what? Uh, and being 6'6", you know, over 400 pounds, you don't need a resume. You just walk into a bar and you go, hi, you looking for a doorman? You know, so I always had that advantage. And I was working within a few hours. And I went in looking for a job as a doorman, like I always do. And the guy said, oh, I'm sorry. I don't need any doorman. I'm full up on bouncers. And I said, okay, no problem. I turned around to leave. And he says, I do need a DJ though. And all of a sudden, it was like the acting gene in me that I had played with all through school kicked in. And I just started naming every nightclub I'd ever been to as a customer back in Ontario. It was like, really? Well, aren't you? Oh, this is your day. I used to be the head DJ at Stages nightclub. I used to be the head DJ at the Twist. I just started naming clubs that I could even think of. Truth was, I'd never been in a DJ booth. I don't know what a DJ does other than play music, but I knew nothing about it. And he said, oh my God, you're my savior. So this is such luck. Come back at 6 o'clock. You can meet the head DJ. His name is Ali, and we'll go from there. I said, great. And this was like 10 o'clock in the morning because we had just gotten into town. So we walked around all day and looked at stuff. And I said, oh, it's 6 o'clock. I got to go back to the bar. Well, when I was there originally, the bar wasn't open yet, so it was just an empty bar, and all bars look the same when they're empty, right? It's just that old panel wood and that stale stink of beer that's in the carpet, you know.
Oh yeah.
So I went back at 6, and as soon as I opened the door, all I could hear was screaming and hooting and hollering. That's when I realized then that it was a strip club. I hadn't even put that together in my head. And so not only am I a DJ, I'm a DJ for strippers. So, you know, a lot of eye opening for a 19-year-old. And I I walk over to the DJ booth, which was really a hole in the wall behind the bar that you had to basically go sideways to squeeze through this hole that had been, and it was basically like a storage room behind the bar that they used as with a little hole in the wall that the DJ could see the stage. And I said, "Hi, you must be Ali. Uh, I'm Tiny because I that was my name on the streets. You know, when I was 19, everybody called me Tiny. You know, because people are so funny. 6'6", 400 pound. I know what you are. You're tiny." So I walked in and I said, "Hi, I'm Tiny." And he goes, "Oh, the head DJ." I said, "Oh, I mean, the new DJ." I said, "Yeah, I guess." He goes, "Great. I'll be back at midnight. Have fun." And he leaves. I'm standing in the DJ booth. The music's playing. The dancers on stage. The lights are, all the lights are flashing and flickering. And I'm standing in this DJ booth by myself, having never played music in a DJ booth. Uh, and all of a sudden the music ends and there's silence and people are you can hear all the people trying to make noise and they're clapping and there's all muted tones, and all of a sudden I hear hello, and I look up through the little hole in the wall, and there's a naked woman standing on stage. She's got her hands on her hips, and she goes hello, and then I immediately realized, oh yeah, I should say something. And so I look down at the board in front of me, and I don't know what anything is. And when I see MIC, well, you know, I ain't that dumb. I know what MIC stands for, right? So I grab the knob and I turn it all the way to the top, not realizing you don't do that. So now throughout this whole club, all you hear is People are ducking for cover, and there's this feedback going on. Finally, I get it down, and I go, "Okay, guys," and I'm like a Rolodex in my head. I'm trying to remember. Okay, what have I heard in strip clubs when I've ever been in a strip club? What have I heard the DJ say? Because I'm trying to figure that out. And I go, okay, guys, let's hear it for. Um, oh yeah, I don't know her name. I'm looking around the DJ booth. There's got to be a name in here somewhere. And all of a sudden, from this stage, I hear La Donna. She's still standing there with her hands on her hips. I go, okay, guys, let's hear it for LaDonna. And all of a sudden they go, shower, shower. I'm like, oh, come on, man. I haven't even learned how to use the microphone yet. Now you're asking for the showers? Okay. Um, so I see a button and it says shower. So I press that button, and there's on stage, there's like a small little round tub sort of, and in the middle of it is like a globe, half a globe, and the water shoots out of the top of it. It's like almost like a big fancy water sprinkler. And so I press that, that starts up, and I go, okay, guys, I guess you guys want a shower. So let's put your hands together and let's hear it for LaDonna. And I don't know how the music works. All I know is that there's two tape decks next to me, and it says deck one, deck two. And I figure, oh, I got to play some music. Well, I didn't know that the DJ, the guy that was there earlier, had faded out, because I didn't know there was, I didn't know you can do that, fade in and out of songs and all that stuff. So I didn't know he had faded out of the last song. So I go, okay, guys, let's hear it for LaDonna for the shower. And I press play, and it goes, da da ba da da. And I go, okay, guys, there you go. That was LaDonna. She hadn't even gotten in the shower yet. She's like lifting her foot to get in the shower, and I'm already calling her off stage. And it was such a nightmare as the day went on. But by midnight, when the head DJ shows up, I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, guys, remember, while you're feeding those hungry eyes, you can also quench those thirsty legs. We got highball 475. We got shooters 270. Now stick around, because coming up after the dark is LaDonna. It's like the actor in me just took off as the course of the day went. And so that was my first experience in Vancouver as an actor. And so I ended up jump forward a few days. I ended up getting in a massive fight with the bartender and two of the waitresses, and they ended up smacking me over the head. The bartender smacked me over the head and gave me stitches here with the cue stick, and I got in a big fight because who knew that if you're working in some dive strip club where everybody is at the end of their rope, as it is, and I decided to quit because I didn't want anything to do with this place anymore. But instead of quitting and leaving, I quit, took my paycheck, and sat there and just drank pitchers after pitchers after pitchers of beer. And the whole time, it's like, you guys are a bunch of suckers. You're caught in a trap. I'm smart one. I'm getting out of here. You guys. Well, people don't like having fingers pointed at them all day. So finally, I just got a crack over the head with the cue stick from the bartender. Next thing I know, I've got a waitress on my shoulders, and she's trying to. And so I just like was bleeding, and I ended up going to the hospital, getting another place to stay. It was just a nightmare. And this was all in the first 2 weeks of moving here as a kid from the suburbs, as a 19-year-old. And so I ended up getting a job working at a real establishment, a big nightclub that held like 2,500 people. On a busy night, they'd have like 20 doormen. It was like massive. And so I'm working one night, and these two women come up to me, real nice looking women, and they go, "Excuse me." I said, "Yeah." Are you in the film industry? And I didn't even really know what that meant. I said, "No." She goes, I work here. I'm a doorman. Oh, have you done any acting? I said, well, it's through high school. I did plays and improv and skits and stuff. Ah, because you have a really interesting face. And I think we could probably do something with you. And they pull a card out. They go, here's our card. Give us a call and we'll see what we can do with you. And I said, okay, thanks. And they walked away, and I went, bunch of chicks just trying to pick me up, whatever. Put the card in my pocket, never thought twice, got home, threw the card on the desk. A couple weeks later, I'm cleaning up my desk. I come across this card, and I'm like, oh. This was the first time I actually read the card, like 2 weeks later. I'm looking at it, and it's a talent agency, and they're both talent agents, and they were legitimately. I was like the you know the pretty girl who moves to Hollywood, and she's at the drugstore like they used to talk about in the 40s. She's in the drugstore, and the agent or the producer sees her and makes her a movie star. It was that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, okay. So I called them. I went in. I signed with them. The next week, I was shooting my first commercial, and then I was doing, and that is how I got into being a film actor. Was just working at a nightclub as a doorman. Two women approached me, and the once the ball started rolling, that was in 1990, 1980, late 1989, 1990. I did my first commercial February 1990, and it's just been, one of those perpetual motion things where I'm just going around and around and around. It's like even if I wanted to get off at this point, 35 years, this is who I am. This is what I do. Now I'm an actor. As a younger actor, I did a lot more creature performers and a lot of monsters, that stuff. And I'm constantly trying to just be a normal guy, but and I have to always remember you're 6'6", you're 400 pounds. You'll never be what they call normal.
Uh, Actually, though, I mean the thing is your look, it gives you the advantage of if they need that big person for such as a bouncer or something like that
Hmm.
in a film. I mean, you go in for it. You got a bunch of people who are like 5'5" or 5'6". You're like, oh yeah, that guy's gonna get the job no matter what.
Hmm.
I mean, it has its perks.
Unless you
Uh,
get it on, unless you're auditioning for a movie where the lead actor who likes to give the impression that he's a tough guy, but he's only 5'6", and then all of a sudden they tell production, don't hire any men taller than 5'6", because the last thing they need is me walking in the room a foot taller than the guy. All of a sudden, like a Tom Cruise or one of these actors who, like Mr. Macho, but the reality is they're just little wee ones.
oh yeah.
So I've lost that. I remember just to jump ahead for a second. I remember going to an audition for a commercial. I had worked with these producers before on a different commercial, and so I go into this audition and they have storyboards on the wall to basically a breakdown of what the commercial is going to look like so that as you're reading through your lines and stuff, you can like try to visualize the commercial. So I'm looking at the commercial. It was with a hockey player named Bobby Orr, and it was going to be for Chevy Astrovan, and it was basically me and him in the front of the Chevy Astrovan, and I'm like his bouncer slash driver, like security guy, and I'm driving him around. And so I go over to the storyboard and I look at the storyboard, and the first thing I see is a drawing of a guy sitting in the thing, and he looks exactly like me. And I thought, oh, that's odd. And then I look, and in the breakdown next to the storyboard, it says a body type, a bodyguard type like Ernst. And I thought, wow, I'm actually on the storyboard. How can I not get this? They're using me as the example. Well, jump ahead. I didn't get the commercial because, as it turns out, 6'6", 400 pounds isn't really going to fit in the front of a Chevy Astrovan to make it. You're trying to sell the car. You can't really sell the car when you're, all wedged in the front seat. So when the commercial finally aired, I had people coming up to me going, "Hey, I saw your Chevy Astrovan commercial. Way to go. You and Bobby Orr, pretty cool." And I go, I didn't get that. I finally saw the commercial. They had went, but it turned out they had walked around shopping malls looking at people. They finally saw someone that looked exactly like me, but he was like 5'6", had no acting experience, had never done any acting. They just liked my look, but they needed someone a foot shorter than me. So the first thing I did at that commercial, I remember I ripped the storyboard off the wall, stuck it in my portfolio, and I said, I may not get this commercial, but I'm taking this storyboard because no one's ever going to believe that I went to an audition and there was me as the example on the storyboard and then not get the commercial. So that's the that's the thing you always have to be ready for. as the actors. Like, yeah, you have the perfect height for roles, but you have to also fit in especially if it's TV, you need to fit within the frame. And if all the actors, the top of their heads are here and you're up here, you know, your head's not even going to be in the shot. So that was why it was funny when I did a film recently with Peter Dinklage, and they shot the entire scene from his point of view. So I might as well be the parents in a Peanuts cartoon because all you see is my legs and my stomach and my hands. And you hear me, but you don't see me because everything is shot with him at the in frame, and then me just standing next to him. But I took that mainly because I knew it was a sight gag, but I wanted to work with Peter Dinklage.
Oh yeah. He's a phenomenal actor.
Yes, you forget that he's 3 feet tall after 5 minutes.
Oh yeah. So to kind of go off subject for a moment, you've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Well, I know of it, but I've never watched it.
So that whole show was phenomenal. I would say go to his scene where he's giving his speech when he's on trial.
Uh-huh.
Probably the best of the entire series. Just that one scene, and you'd be like, you ain't even gonna watch the rest unless you want to see a bunch of women getting naked and getting killed and guys killing each other, stuff like that.
Dragons and naked incest.
So let's talk about some of your projects. You've been
Okay.
with some serious productions. You've been with some serious actors and actresses, and I mean, I can only go with what I've seen you in, but I've
Uh-huh.
seen, like I did see your episode of the X Files. That was phenomenal. What
And
was
that
it like
was
being
that
on that set?
well, it was crazy because Chris Carter, the creator and producer of the X-Files, he was also the writer and director of that episode. So when you have the creator of the show who's also uh, the creator of the specific episode and he's directing it, well, nobody is going anywhere until Mr. Carter sees in front of him what he sees in his head. And so I remember the one the one we were shooting at the barn that's in the barn and the farmhouse that's out in the middle of nowhere in the country, and it was pouring rain. And in that was for me, that was a 21 and a half hour day. And I'll tell you, standing in the rain for 21 and a half hours, you know, these TV shows, first of all, they're insane because these hour-long dramas, they're like half of a feature film and they shoot them in like 8 days, you know, and then they start over and they start over every 8 days, another movie basically. So uh, it was intense because he, like I said, being the creator, he's just going to keep shooting until he gets it exactly how he wants it. And I remember we were shooting, there was probably 50, 150 extras playing the town folk, and we're running around, we're looking for the great mutado, we're looking up in the barn, down in the barn. And at one point I come running in the barn and I've got the big lantern that I'm using to see, and I slip on the mud in the barn and I just go crashing down. And I was even bigger at that point. So I was probably over 500 pounds when I shot that. And because I had the lantern in my hand, I couldn't brace myself. So I just went crashing right down, and the big glass lantern just smashed right next to my face. I ended up putting all my weight on my knee. They ended up scooping me up and taking me to the hospital to emergency. So while they continued shooting that all that stuff at the barn and in the pouring rain, and then with the pitchforks and the fire, and they're all looking for the great mutado, I'm over an emergency getting them to check my knee out. And I thought, oh man, I'm gonna lose my big action scene where the barn's on fire and I come running out and I'm screaming that the barn's on fire. Well, unbeknownst to me, while they were shooting all of the wide shots, Chris didn't want me to lose my moment. So when I came back from the hospital and they'd already shot all the crowd stuff, he says, "Don't worry, Ernst. We've got a wall part of the barn over here, and we're gonna." And the thing with the special effects and everything, they can just turn a switch, and all of a sudden the flames come up and the barn's on fire. And they turn it off, and the flames go down, and the barn's not on fire. So they turned it up. They had a bunch of extras come running out the thing, and I just walked up the camera and go, "The barn's on fire." So I was so glad that even though I was in the hospital for like 3 hours, and I thought for sure they're going to shoot my stuff, but no, I was glad they got that. And it's funny. It's like I have like two lines in that episode. It was a guest star, so I got my name at the beginning of the show, and that blew me away because that was the first time I had a guest star credit on a show. And the funny part was the opening of the show starts, and you have Scully and Mulder, and they're in their car, and they're driving to the town, and they're going over their case file as to what this case that they're driving into town to look into, the Great Mutado. They're going through the thing, and she starts reading this letter, the letter that got their attention. And she says, as she's reading the letter, she says, "I saw your name on the TV." And just as Gillian Anderson says that, boom, up comes Ernst Harth. And so I was so blown away at home watching it. I jumped up out of the couch. I had the remote in my hand. I almost pressed stop recording because I got so excited. But I ended up using that for the beginning for like a good 3 years. I used that as the beginning of my demo reel. I had Gillian Anderson go, "I saw your name on the TV." Sears Hearth. Boom. That's the beginning of my demo reel. But no, that was a fun episode because they had hired a bunch of actors that were all supposed to look like different animals because we were all supposed to be um, experiments that this doctor had. He had taken all the different animals from his father's farm and he had tried to make it was like a island of Dr. Moreau kind of thing. So I think my legitimate character, the actual character name in the script was Huge Man.
Yep.
So I guess I was supposed to be mixed with a pig or an elephant or something. I don't know. But it was great. And I didn't, the whole episode being black and white, that so the fact that I have only two lines in this thing, it's just it's so memorable for people, and I get people talking to me about this episode all the time. And just because that black and white episode was so memorable, with the Cher music and with the all the different circus tents over the houses and then the Mutado with two heads and the mouth and everything. I mean, I think that episode alone was nominated for like 11 Emmys or something.
There.
It was a fun one, and that was like 1997. That was
Yep.
at the beginning of things, and I was happy to just be working then. But I'm glad to have X Files on my resume, especially a classic episode like that.
Yeah. We're gonna fast forward to 1998. Again, another TV show that. So I'm gonna take a moment and kind of set the scenario. So every week, me and my mom would watch the X Files.
Yep.
Then every week in '98, we'd watch also Millennium.
Yeah.
And you were in an episode of that. Your character was named Bear. Uh, First off, two phenomenal shows, kind of the same contrast, but different ways of telling stories.
Hmm.
So what was your experience on that, and what was it like working with the people on that set?
Well, both shows are Chris Carter shows. Both of them were 1013 productions. So it was a lot of the same family kind of thing, a lot of people behind the scenes. And I remember the audition for that was funny because I decided I was going to go for it. So my character was basically a mental patient at a mental institute, and he had killed a bunch of people because he thinks he's a bear, and he had mauled them, and I always get the normal guys, and so for the audition, I decided. I'm just going to go in there as whacked out as I can. Well, the audition was on a Monday. I decided I don't have a reason. There's no reasoning. I'm a little bit of a nutcase sometimes, and I make these weird decisions. Like I'll go into an audition in my underwear, even if it doesn't ask for me to be in my underwear, just because I'm making an impression. You know. Uh, so for this one, I decided it's Monday morning. Okay, I'm not going to sleep this weekend. So, so Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, I didn't sleep all weekend. I was up for the whole weekend, and I took the bus over there. And I think I took the cab because I don't think I had the wherewithal to figure out how to take the transit. over there. So I took a cab over there, and I decided I was wearing full pajamas and a house coat, like a robe. And I had been up, my hair was all like it is now, but bigger. And so I go into and in the audition, my character is supposed to be having a grand mal seizure like he does in the episode. So I end up breaking the chair that I'm sitting in for the audition. The back leg bends. I go crashing onto the ground. Chris Carter is sitting there at the audition. He is so excited. He can't believe this is happening in front of me. And so I go out and I'm sitting in the hallway after the audition, and they just loved it. And there's probably 9 or 10 other actors sitting along the wall, and they're reading their line, and they're getting psyched up, and they're going into audition for Bear as well. So as they're sitting there, and I'm still sitting there going, I'm trying to come back down to earth because I've just had this massive scene. The casting director comes back out. She says, "Do you have anything on the go this afternoon?" I said, "No." She goes, "Okay, we're gonna keep it to yourself, but we're gonna need to take you to the eye guy because we're gonna have to get you fitted for contact lenses." And I'm slowly realizing that I've already booked the role. These guys are still auditioning for the role. They already decided in the room that I was the guy, and they were already getting a Teamster to drive me to the eyeglass place to get fitted for contacts. And so that was a weird experience. It's like, as you're tiptoeing out the place, and good luck, saying good luck to all the other actors. And so then I remember being on set, and the scene starts where we're behind the wall, we're behind the wall, and getting ready to shoot. And I'm sitting there, and I got I'm got my head turned from the other actors that were standing there with me, waiting to go in the room. And like I'm standing with Lance Henriksen and Terry O'Quinn and me because the three of us start outside of the community room at this place. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to get myself all worked up, psyched up, because I right off the top of the scene, I come in on my hands and knees like a basically a rabid bear, basically. So and the director, the first AD says, "Okay, we're getting ready, everyone to first positions." And I'm sitting there going, and all of a sudden I hear Terry O'Quinn go, "Okay, Brando, let's go." So we go in to do the scene, and that was intense. Like when the shot where it's funny because I just posted a picture on my Facebook page today of Terry O'Quinn and Lance Henriksen pulling me off the girl that I was eating her arm. And I'm like, it took 5 guys, literally 5 guys, to pull me off her because, you know, I don't pull punches. If you're going to make it look real, so trust me, Lance and Terry, they worked their ass off trying to pull this 400-pound guy off this girl because I wasn't giving it. And so they threw me into the cell, and you could see they were exhausted. And we did that over and over and over again. And it was another one of those episodes where, first of all, I think Millennium was so far before its time. I
Oh yeah.
think that show nowadays on streaming, where they could just show whatever they wanted and do it. The fact that they got away with a lot of what they did on network television back then, it was a pretty intense show sometimes. And a lot of the satanic stuff, and a lot of like I remember the one episode where the girl, it was like a streaming. This streaming was so new back then, but they were already doing episodes where people are being killed on these special streaming sites where you could watch people being brutalized and tortured. But that was such a fun episode, and getting to work so closely um, with and I met a good friend on there, Justin Lewis, who's now goes by Louis Ferreira. He played the one orderly in that episode. So getting to work with him and Terry O'Quinn and Lance Henriksen, and also Melinda McGraw, who played the female doctor at the mental institution in that episode. But the for me, I remember Michael Massey, the actor Michael Massey, was in the scene with me, and the reason that name stuck with me, and I couldn't remember, and then I realized he was the guy who accidentally killed Brandon Lee in The Crow. He was the other actor in the scene who shot him and didn't know that there was still a piece of the bullet in the gun. So it was like the whole time I'm doing that Millennium episode, I'm constantly having to tell myself, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't bring it up because he's probably heard it a million times and doesn't want to talk about it. And the last thing he wants to do is have me start talking about you remember you like all of a sudden turn into Chris Farley, you remember the time you shot Brandon Lee? So
Oh
you
yeah.
always have to shut up the little head voice in your head who wants to ask different questions on set of, especially of famous people. What was it like working with such and such? It's like, you know, I have to look at it as I'm a baker, he's a baker, and we're here making buns, and leave it at that. You
There you
know,
go.
yeah. But yeah, those were two good shows. And the other Chris Carter show I did that he produced was I worked on Harsh Realm. I don't know if you ever saw that one. That
No, I
was
didn't see that one.
based in a computer game, and it was like the army had war games that would take place in a virtual reality. So once again, it was before its time because it was talking about virtual reality before it was actually a thing. And that
Oh
one I
yeah.
got to play. Chris remembered me talking about having been involved with wrestling. So all of a sudden, he calls me up and he says, "What are you doing this week?" And I hadn't auditioned or anything. I was going to the movie theater, and the phone rings. And when you have just left your house and you hear the phone ringing in the house, and you're like, should I just pretend I'm already gone, or should I go back in the house and answer the phone? And there was something niggling in my brain says, no, 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 go back and get it. So I go back in and I get everything unlocked. I go back in, I grab the phone, and I go, hello, Ernst. Hi, it's Chris. Uh, Chris. You start going through your head. How many Chris's do I know? What Chris do I know? Who would be calling me? And I hear Carter. Oh, Chris Carter. Hey, hi, what's up? And he goes, you working this week? No. He goes, do you want to come down and do an episode rest of this week and next week? But you want me to come work for 2 weeks? You're just calling me? Okay. He goes, get a cab, come on over to the North Shore. We're at the studio. And don't worry, just take a cab. We'll reimburse you. And so, oh, okay. So I jump in again and I meet with he says, I remember you telling me you were a wrestler. And I said, yeah, I was involved in wrestling. Truth is, I was never a wrestler. I was involved. I was like a ring guy, would help set up the thing. But,
Yeah.
actors like to, embellish. So all of a sudden, I'm a former professional wrestler, right? Next thing I know, I've told this story so many times. One day I go over to my IMDb and it says under trivia, was a professional wrestler. I thought, oh, I guess I better stop telling that story because people, but then I wouldn't have gotten that episode of Harsh Realm playing it was called a zip fighter. I was basically an MMA type fighter, but what they did then was they would create a digital file of you and they would shrink it down, and so you would come into the battle ring carrying this cage, and you'd put the cage down, and the ring was actually like 1/8 size. They had taken a real size ring, octagon, and then had shrunk it down. And so we come in and we pop the top of these cages, and me and the other wrestler, the cage is open, and two digital versions come out, and they start wrestling. So we had to shoot all that stuff with like the little balls on and everything, so that they could do the motion capture and then reduce it. But that was so bizarre that when you watch the episode, it's like there's me cheering myself on, so getting to shoot that for a week, and I ended up having a bit of a minor heart attack because I was really big at that, but I was probably working. I was probably 550, and they had me wearing a leather bondage mask, and they had a zipper across it, so it was like nowhere for me to breathe. So,
That's crazy.
but it's the things you do when you're willing to do anything, especially if there's a camera pointed at you, you know. Yeah, I have a tendency to not say no, especially if it sounds fun. I'm usually the kind of guy who, you know what would be great? Now, okay, I see what it says in the script. Now, just think about this. What if I was in my underwear? It's like, once again, it's always back to I just want to be comfortable. And nothing's more comfortable than walking around in your gushies.
That actually brings us to the next film that I would like to talk about. You played the great child in 13 Ghosts.
Yes, talking about underwear. Uh, and that one, once again, I was 598 when we shot that. I was at probably at my heaviest when we shot that film. And then to be at your heaviest, and then they tell you, okay, and then you're gonna be wearing underwear for the whole film, and you get to work with Shannon Elizabeth and F. Murray Abraham and Tony Shalhoub. Uh, but that was a bizarre film to start with because they brought us into audition, but they didn't tell us really what we were auditioning for. We told us it was going to be a horror film. That's all I knew. So I go into audition, and they had us stand on this mark, and they said, "Okay, we want you to walk to the camera, don't say anything, look scary, and go." So it's like, and then like make moaning noises. And so it was basically just walking like a zombie, walking like a dead man, doing all these things. And then they called me back and I go in, do it again. So I've got a stack in storage downstairs, probably 10, 12 scripts because first of all, I have so many, like I have a version of the script that was written by James Gunn. I have a version of this. They kept bringing in people to do rewrites. So I have all these versions. So when I first got hired, the character's name was Couch Potato. And this guy had died basically sitting on his couch watching TV and ate himself to death, kind of thing. And so I was going to be this big fat guy sitting in a singlet, like a wife beater and underwear. And I had like, you'd see the shirt going up, like rising, and it was basically rats crawling underneath through my body, and they had like rats coming out of my eye socket, and it was like all this kind of stuff. And that was the original character. Then they changed it to where I was into bondage, BDSM, and I had a dominatrix who was like a little person, and the little person was the dominatrix, and I basically got so excited that I came and I passed out on her, and that's how I killed her, kind of thing. So it was like these bizarre things, right? So then next thing I know, I go in and they're thinking, okay, the little woman that was the dominatrix and that was hanging off of you, we're gonna make her your mother. How'd you go from how'd you go from dominatrix to mother? Okay, but she's still going to be a little person, and now you're going to be like a big baby. And so they started going with that concept. And so then I go in and we're doing makeup tests and we're doing camera tests to get the different looks. And my hair was like it is now, but it was even bushier. And I'm standing outside the trailers with Steve Beck, the director, and we're trying to think of a look for the baby. What kind of a look? Like, should the baby have a big head of hair or what? And just then Shannon Elizabeth walks by and she's on her way to the makeup trailer. And Steve calls her over and he says, "Shannon, come here. I got a question. What do you think the big baby? What do you?" And because at that point, I nobody was calling me the great child. I was the big baby for the whole film. They just called me Big Baby, and so because I don't even know if they really had the backstories even written yet. Because even when you watch the film, you listen to the commentary, there's one version of the backstories. But then if you put on the special features and they have the ghost files with F. Murray Abraham telling the backstories of all the ghosts, and they're completely different than what Steve's talking about on the commentary. So it's like, I don't think they ever really figured out the backstories of these guys. I think that's why there's all that talk about a series about the backstories of the ghosts because people are so hungry for more of those ghosts. They want to know more about them, the backstories and what have you. And that's why when people say, are you involved in anything to do with 13 Goes Now with this new version that they keep talking about? And I keep thinking, no, first of all, no, I haven't heard anything. Nobody's talked to me. But I think they're going to probably create a whole new version, a whole new story. And if that's the case, then just go make a whole other movie because I truly believe fans want to know the backstories of those ghosts from that movie
Oh
back
yeah.
then. Those are the ones that people want to know the backstory. Don't go create a whole bunch of new ghosts and create stories around that. Then if you're going to do that, just go make a whole other horror film, you know. But so he says to her, Shannon, what kind of hair do you think the big baby should have? And she's looking at me and she's looking me up and down, and she goes, "Oh, you know, it would be perfect. In the 60s, I think it was in the 60s, there was this cartoon character, and he was like a really big duck, and he had like a big diaper, and he had like a big blonde curl." And Steve Beck goes, "Baby Huey?" And she goes, "Yeah, I think he should look like Baby Huey." And off I go to the makeup trailer. They cut off my afro. They left the tuft of hair in the front. And then I had to, every 3 days, I had to go into the trailer to get my hair dyed blonde that you see in the movie, because that's my real hair. Everybody thought it was just a stick on, like they just shaved my head but no, that was my real hair. So for 3.5 months, I had to walk around looking like a poodle's ass with, with this curl sticking off the top of my head. But that was the look they eventually went with. And it's funny because if you see, I was in a couple of Fangoria magazines where they did photo spreads, and the one picture you see me, I have brown hair, and what looks like a tablecloth. It's a picture from when we were still doing makeup tests. It's not even the final look of me, but they have me here in Fangoria, like, here's one of our ghosts. And it's like, I don't have dark hair in the movie, but, um, but that's how I got that look. And so then now I'm going to have to spend the whole film in my underwear. And so then there's the whole thing. Should it be underwear? Should it be a diaper? Should it be a diaper? Should it be under? This is, grown adults and studio heads having these discussions, diaper, underwear, diaper. Well, we decided to go with dirty underwear. And but what people don't know, here's a little insider. Underneath the diaper, I'm wearing a gold lame thong. So now you can picture that every time you watch the movie.
I probably will be able to picture that every time.
You won't be able to get it out of your head now.
Oh,
But
once my
my
wife
favorite
watches this episode.
my favorite direction in that film was there's the one moment where the maid and Dennis come running around the corner, and that's just as my mother and I walk out and make our first appearance in front of them. And I'm standing there and I'm swinging my bloody axe, and I got my mom standing next to me. And Steve says, "Okay, now I don't want you to say anything, but what I want you to do is I want you to scream bloody murder, but don't open your mouth." So when you watch the movie now that I've said that, and you see me, you hear all this weird muffled scream kind of stuff. It's me screaming but not opening my mouth. And it was just such a great direction for me because it put me right into that moment, and it gave me something to do that you never know that I'm actually doing, right? But
Oh yeah.
it's a creepy sound. And um the fun part was also when you first see us and we're in our little cells in the basement, and we're still locked up in our little cells, and they have me sitting in an easy chair, and my mom is sitting on my lap and she's feeding me baby food. Well, people think she's feeding me baby food, but one of the shots that we did that you don't see in the film is she's scooping the puke off my bib and putting it in the baby jar, and then she's feeding me out of the baby jar. So it's all those little things that nobody knows. But as I'm watching it, I'm going, "Oh yeah, I remember. She's feeding me my puke there." But it was intense when we were on the eye, the black zodiac, whatever, the eye of hell thing, and we're spinning around. In the movie, you see all of these gears coming up and down, and they're all spinning around, and it's a massive. It's all this big CGI special effect. The reality was you had a hole in the ground that was probably, I don't know, 10 feet, and at the bottom you had these massive fans, big air fans blowing air up to recreate all of the commotion from these gears going up and down. So you got this big hole, you got these big industrial fans blowing up on us. You have all these lights down there pushing up at us, and we're spinning around on this thing. And you know, I remember Ken Kersinger, who was the stunt coordinator. He's also uh, he played Jason in Jason versus Freddy.
Yep.
Well, he was the stunt coordinator, and I remember at one point I said to Ken, "This is I keep feeling like I'm going to fall into this hole," and he says, "Well, if you feel like you're going to fall back." I was like, "Oh, thanks. There's my thanks, stunt coordinator. I feel much safer now." So the look of fear, and and then you're supposed to look like you're a ghost. You're supposed to look up and like, and pretend that you're not spinning around a 10-foot hole with fans blowing at you. But that house was amazing. And that house itself, I was when I worked on that film, I swore this thing's got to be nominated for an Oscar for production design or something. I mean, they don't usually give those kind of films awards, substance, or whatever. But that if Demi Moore hadn't have been in that I don't think they would have ever even looked at that film, the Academy. You know, um, you take it for what it is. But I thought, man, there's because all the glass you saw was glass. There was like 2,500 panes of glass. It was made out of steel. It was 2 stories. What you saw actually existed. The windows, the walls actually shifted. They actually went up and down, and this thing was massive. But just think of the logistics. Every surface all around you, every surface is glass. And what do you have to do to see the actors? You got to point lights at them. And what reflects lights? So all of a sudden you have basically they had to overlight it so that you were basically whiting out the reflections so that you couldn't see any reflections. But anyways, the crew was wearing black so that, as soon as they yell action, the crew would like crouch in the corner and stuff and down. But I always like to say my favorite kind of drinking game is when I'm watching 13 Ghosts is every time you see a crew member who forgot to wear his black shirt that day, take a drink. Because throughout the film, even though it's shot very quickly, there's a lot of cuts, like flash cuts, like a music video almost. Uh, but every so often, you could see a crew member reflected in one of the walls. He's wearing his white T-shirt in the background, kind of thing. But because of that, it was so hot in there because it's just light on top of light on top of light, and then they have to turn all the fans off when there's dialogue. So then that's when I was thankful to be in just standing there in my underwear because all the other guys were like, for example, the Juggernaut or the Hammer, they were in full prosthetic makeup from head to toe. Now, granted, their bodies, everybody, I remember reading on the internet and it said something like John DeSantis, who plays the Juggernaut, gained 20 pounds of muscle in 12 weeks or something. It's like, no, they built his body on top of a diving suit, and every morning he slid his body on, you know. So, if you want to believe he gained all that muscle, fine. But so they would pull their whole body on and put this like a diving suit that had the body built onto it, and then the face put on top of that. But they had all that prosthetic makeup and like the hammer with the spikes and everything. So they had to go through that every day. All I had to do was lay naked on a table for 3 hours and have them paint me with layers and layers of paint. Me and the girl who played the angry princess, the naked girl, the naked ghost. That's what they called me, Big Baby, and they called her Naked Ghost. We shared a trailer, so it was basically 2 beds with 2 people laying there naked while they were basically spray painting us down. But then she had to have all of those razor slices applied to her, including one that went right over her nipple, so that the nipple was split in half. Some
Oh yeah.
crazy effects that they did on that film. And I think that's why the film has garnered such a cult audience is because it was practical effects. It was real makeup, and the actors were acting alongside the ghosts rather than just acting to like okay, see that tennis ball? Pretend there's going to be a monster there. Ooh. When you see me in my underwear full of blood and puke come around the corner, there's no acting involved for Matthew Lillard. I'm standing right there. You can't mistake me. So when you see 12 of us spinning around the thing and we're all there, it was pretty impressive to be on set. The problem was they would also schedule the regular actors to come in and do their dialogue scenes. And so what would happen some days is they'd have all the ghosts. We'd come in at like 5 in the morning. We'd go through hours and hours and hours of makeup, get all ready, and then we had like a holding for the monster, the ghost holding over there. So we would go sit over there with all of our makeup guys and all of our people, our wardrobe people and everything. And we'd be sitting there for 10, 12, 13, 14 hours and makeup's melting and you've been sitting there all day. And then the assistant director comes over and goes, hi guys. It, it doesn't look like we're going to get to you guys today. So we're going to wrap you. And so then you go back to the trailer, you take everything off, you go home, you come back in the morning, you put it all back on, and then you sit there and your fingers crossed, hoping that. And that's when you know these productions who have done a lot of prosthetics, they schedule these things so you're not standing around waiting for actors to get their lines right,
Oh
while
yeah.
you're sitting in the corner melting, you know. It's always fun, but it's also frustrating when you see how many, like 12 actors, and then we each had two or three people that did our makeup. So now you're talking like 30 people getting paid to do their art and their creations, and then they're not even getting seen, and then they got to strip it all off and start over the next day. I mean, yeah, sure, everybody's getting paid, but it's still, your art's your art, and it feels very disrespectful to just have everyone sitting there all day. But it was an exciting film to be part of. But at the same time, nobody knew really what it was going to be. We had seen the one from the 60s with Margaret Hamilton, the old William Castle 13 Ghosts,
Oh
and
yeah.
it was so cheesy. So people were just like, nobody really knew what to expect. And so it's unfortunate that we came out just after 9/11 because people weren't really into going to the movies, you know, and not really to see. But so the audience sort of petered in, and then I think the film found its audience on home video because I think it was we nobody wanted to go to the theater to see that kind of movie, but at home, people will watch stuff that they wouldn't normally go see in public. People will watch Terrifier at home, but they don't want to be seen in public going to see it, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And as the years have gone on, now we're what, 24 years since then, the film has gotten more popular every year. I mean, like I said, they're still talking about it, and I still am getting people going. You know what? You with this convention needs to have a 13 Ghosts reunion. Everyone keeps asking for a 13 Ghosts reunion. You know, um, it's amazing how you do films. The other film that we haven't talked about, the other thing, the Scooby Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. Those two films are like films that have just gotten more successful with each year. And I think as the next generation, you have the fans of it the first time, and now they're showing it to their kids, and then that continues the ball rolling. But to be part of those two big franchises, those are the two that I get probably the most requests for fan mail and for photos and what have you. And they're so and then to find out afterwards that there's actually a the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo film. I was like, I just got to get in that, and then I can complete the trifecta. And I'm like, I've meted myself out.
Oh yeah. Uh, so funny story. I'm based in Michigan, and you
Okay,
were supposed to come to Motor City Legacy 2 years
2
ago.
years ago, yes.
Yeah, and I think you had scheduling conflict because you were about to film something, and I was like going to these conventions up here. I always pinpoint that one person I want to meet, you know,
Yeah,
And so this is kind of like a surreal moment because that convention that year, 2 years ago, you were the main person I was going to meet.
Oh, well, I'm sorry it didn't work out. I was on my way there, and then didn't have the right paperwork, and it's like, and now it's even harder to get across the border. But one of these days.
Oh yeah. I know you trust me, no need to apologize because see, there would have been awesome and in person, but there we probably would have had more of a limited time to talk because
Yeah,
there was other fans. Doing this now, I mean, this is I don't want to kind of sound cheesy or anything, but this is somewhat better because yeah, it's going to be shown by anybody who watches or seen by anybody who watches it after it gets posted, but this is more of a just a conversation,
yeah.
you know? And
That's why
and that
I like doing these podcasts. I've had friends, they say to me, I saw that podcast you did there like 6 months ago, and then there's only like 21 views. I think, well, I'm not doing it for the views. I'm doing it to meet people. And it's like, I don't care if there's no views. I'm having a great conversation talking about stuff that I like to talk about and talking about it with someone who likes to hear it.
oh yeah.
And to me, that's the experience. And if you can bring more eyes to somebody's podcast, because, if your involvement with it, then all the better. We're all helping each other out. You know,
Oh yeah.
uh, that's why when I saw like last week when we were supposed to meet and you had issues with your internet, it's just like, no worries, we'll just do it again. We'll just
Oh
do it
yeah.
next week. But yeah, so did you see 13 Ghosts in the theater?
So when it came out, I was working at a drive-in Dearborn, and so they at the drive-in. This was when it was reel to reel, so you had to splice it all together, and
Oh
you know,
yeah,
so every night, or well, not every night, every week when we got the new movies, we had to splice them together. Then we had to watch them to make sure that they were, they would play fine and everything for the next day.
yeah.
So I got a nice, good, comfortable chair, set it right on top of the concession booth, right by the projection booth, grabbed my big old bucket of popcorn, and I sat there and I watched it by myself the entire night. I actually watched it twice. I wasn't supposed to, but whatever. But
I can't imagine seeing that at a drive-in. That would have been cool.
oh, I turned on every speaker in the whole driving too. So it was definite surround sound. But believe it or not, though, I mean, you're right. After 9/11, not a lot of people wanted to go out and do the normal life stuff.
Yeah,
But the thing is at the drive-in because there's so few of those left.
yeah.
Even back then when it first came out, people flocked, and it sold out at the drive-in. I think for like a month straight, every showing.
Wow.
You know, people would come
I
up.
was just going to say, talking about 9/11, the scene in the film, at the end of the film, once the house has exploded and all of the ghosts have been freed, and you see there's the scene where we've all been freed, and you see us walking and dancing off into the woods. We're leaving the house and we're dancing and walking off into the woods to be free. That was a reshoot, and that, amongst other things that we shot, were shot on 9/11. Only a couple weeks ago, a month before the film came out, they brought us into the studio to reshoot a bunch of stuff. It just happened to be on 9/11. So it's like that day it was the most surreal thing. It'd be like we were standing around shooting stuff, being a ghost in my underwear with my hair, and then they'd yell cut, and we'd all run over to the monitor and we're watching what's going on in New York with the twin towers and the planes and everything. And then, okay, and we're going back, and then you had to put that out of your mind and go back to the. So it was surreal to uh, to have to go back into the studio that much later and that close to when the film's being released to shoot some more stuff. They wanted to shoot, for example, they didn't think they had enough Shannon Elizabeth nudity in the film. Well, I don't think there was any, but you got a ghost walking around nude for the whole film. But they wanted to tease the audience. So there's the one shot where she's being attacked by the jackal and he's going like this. And there's one shot where he rips her shirt and you see like her under boob or whatever. Nonsense. You just know some studio head said, you know what we don't have? that chick there from American Pie. We don't get to see her boobs. We paid a lot of money for her. That kind of thing.
Oh
So
yeah.
you don't even see her boob. It's a photo double. But they felt the need to bring in someone to pretend to be Shannon Elizabeth so they could show the hand. It's funny the decisions they make when someone decides something's missing from the film, and that's the one thing they decided. But it was weird because Steve Beck and some of the makeup people and some of the muckety mucks had come up from LA for the day to shoot the stuff because we were shooting it in Vancouver. And now they're stuck in Canada. They don't know if they're ever going to get to go back to LA or how they're going to go home because all the planes were shut down. So I think a bunch of them got together and eventually I think they rented a car and drove back to LA from Vancouver. But it was such a surreal day to be. So every time I see the movie and I see us leaving the house at the end there, I always remember that was actually, we shot that on 9/11. Such a surreal memory. But yeah, and then the film came out right afterwards. But what I find, and I have mentioned this to other people, I think one reason why the film has become more successful as it's gotten away from its original run in the theaters is because the film is shot with such quick edits. It's almost like a video, like a music video. It's shot so quick that I found in the theater you're too close to the screen. That's why the drive-in must have been awesome. But in the theater, you were too close to the screen. And when everything is cut so fast and you're sitting close to a big screen, you don't have time to take in all that information that's on the screen. It's like you're looking over here, and by the time you move your head to the right, they've already changed the shot. And a whole movie of that, it was just like a cacophony of images. And when it came out on video and I saw it at home and I could see the whole TV screen in front of me, all of a sudden I was like, wow, this movie's it was so much better at home than it was in the theater. And I joked, I said, now that people watch it on their phones, it must be totally amazing because it's like as the screen has gotten smaller and you've been able to take in more of the stuff that's happening. So, I don't know if that there's any truth to that, but I feel like because of the way it was cut, it was just hard to focus on, and it was so loud in the theater. In the drive-in, it must have been awesome, but in the theater, it was so loud. They cranked those things. But yeah, in the drive-in, sitting on the concession booth watching it, I,
That was
that would
awesome.
have been awesome.
Yeah.
So you
It-
probably have story after story for all these different films you've seen at the drive-in.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Also,
I
I
remember
also.
as a I
Oh, go ahead.
remember
I'm sorry.
as a 4-year-old, the first movie there was a movie in 1974 called It's Alive. It's one of those old timey horror movies. And my parents, being an only child, my parents went to see that movie at the drive-in, and the 4-year-old was sleeping in the back seat, sleeping. No, the 4-year-old was like this with his eyes watching It's Alive, and I've been damaged ever since that. And I think the last thing I saw in the drive-in was the original Batman, 1989.
That's a good one. That's a good one to see in the
Yeah,
drive-in.
yeah.
Last thing I saw in the drive-in, I ain't been working there for quite a while now, but last thing I saw, me and my wife went and seen Annabelle, and it was playing with the Fall Guy.
Oh, wow, that's pretty recent.
Yeah. I still get in there for free because everyone I used to work with still works there. So,
Oh, so it's still going.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think they have one drive-in around here, and it's like a 2-hour drive away, and I think they're closing this year, or they closed last year. It's not opening anymore. It's such a thing from my past that was such a like that was a part of growing up. It was like, getting seeing how many people you could shove in the trunk and one ticket, please.
yeah, yeah.
This
I've
was
encountered
before.
that quite a bit.
I think they used to charge by car, or uh, by carload, yeah. But originally they used to sell, but you'd buy the ticket, right? So yeah, I could get one ticket and you shove all your people in the trunk, you know. And then I think they finally they clued into that and they started charging by the carload.
Yeah.
But The drive-in in my hometown was next to a lumber yard, so we would just climb the two by four, the stacks of two by fours, and we'd sit on the top of the stacks of two by fours on the other side of the fence, but high enough that we could see over the fence. And because you have like, I don't know, 1,000 cars and all their speakers and everything, you can clearly hear enough to know what's going on. So
Oh yeah.
for us, it was just going to the lumber yard and sitting on the two by fours and watching the drive-in from there. But
Oh yeah.
now I think there's a Toyota dealership where the drive-in that I grew up going to is. But no, 13 Ghosts at the drive-in, that would have been awesome.
Oh yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah, that was a fun one. And like I said, I get a lot of attention for that film. Probably the most requests for fan mail and the most especially fan art I've seen and tattoos. I'll tell you, nothing is more bizarre because for me, think about this. All of the ghosts in that movie specifically look like the ghosts that they're playing. I'm just me, right? So you'll have like the hammer, and you'll have all these bizarre characters, the pilgrimess and everything, and then you'll see a tattoo and some guy's walking around with a picture of my face on his thigh, and it's just me, right? I'm
oh
not.
yeah.
The only difference between me and the great child is I have two little applications that they put over my eyebrows to cover my eyebrows. That was the only thing. Everything else is just me. I don't even I'm the only ghost that doesn't have contacts in either. So that's why it was bizarre when I saw myself on the cover of Fangoria. I was like, I got the least amount of makeup, and here's me. I don't even have contacts in, and here's me going on the cover of Fangoria. But I felt sorry for the Lori who played my mother because she had a cataract. And just imagine you have this white milky eye that you have to live your life with, knowing that you have this. And all of a sudden now you're on a film set and people don't know that she has cataract in her eye. So now you all day you have people coming up to you going, "Oh, awesome. I love what they did with your eye. It's so cool. Look at that." And I just remember she kept looking at me and shaking her head. It's like, nowhere in my entire life, you don't go up to people in your daily life and go, "Wow, look at your eye. It's so cool. It's all milky looking." But being on a film set where you're, oh, by the way, she's in my black and white X-Files episode. Next time you watch it, you'll have to see she's even at the end at the Cher concert. You see her in the background doing. She's one of the townsfolk. So when you see the episode, you'll see her. She's in the diner where I am, where I have my big encounter with David Duchovny, and where we're all pissed off at him. So I try to trip him, and because we find out that we think they're the big heroes because they're going to come and they're going to show Mutato to the world, and then they basically poo-poo it, and so the next day we're all pissed off because they're making fun of us now. But yeah, she's one of the townsfolk in that film, and the one who plays the waitress who spills the coffee on David Duchovny's lap. Uh, she played the pilgrimess in 13 Ghosts. So it's it's when you're involved with these things, then you know all these little Easter eggs, all these little tidbits of people that you've worked with. Like I did an episode of uh, Haters Back Off, and I played the manager of a taco restaurant, and the kid who's working for me at the front counter is the who played the little kid in Trick or Treat, where I played basically I played a version of the Great Child. I was the giant baby. Uh, I was supposed to be Anna Paquin's blind date, right? Uh, so the little kid uh, who is taught how to carve a pumpkin, and then you find out that he's carving a kid's head instead. That little kid who's, I don't know, 4 years old or whatever, he what spoiler alert, yeah. Uh if you haven't watched Trick or Treat yet, then uh yeah, exactly. So it's always fun to run into these people, like the kid who played in Trick or Treat, the little kid who played Sam, the little killer kid in his costume. I did a movie called Space Buddies, and he was one of the little kids in the little Airbud movie. So it's always fun to when you work in a small community like Vancouver is not that big as far as the actors here. There's probably what 10,000, 20,000 actors, which sounds like a lot, but not when there's like a few 100,000 in the States.
uh, so we're kind of coming to the end of the show, but
Okay.
I'm gonna give you the floor so people you can plug your socials where people can or cannot reach out to you. Entirely up to you. Where they can see your films and pretty much just kind of stay in touch with what you got going on. Floor is
Yeah,
yours.
well, on Facebook, it's CE Harth, and you just put in C. Ernst Harth on Facebook. You'll find I'm the only page on there with that name. And send me a friend request. And if you're interested in any 8 by 10, any of the prints that I would take to a convention with me, I have on sale on my page, $30 Canadian, which I think works out to about $23 US. I'll send you an 8 by 10. I'll sign it however you want. I'll personalize it and shipping's included, and I'll send it off to you. And we've never lost one yet. So no tariffs yet. I don't know what I don't know what that's gonna do. But so if anyone, I have the Great Child, I have Bonzo the Clown from Dead Rising Watchtower, I have the Giant Baby from Trick or Treat, and then there's also um, what I got, the X-Files. I played Sloth in Supernatural. I played the Ogre in Once Upon a Time. So I have all those photos available. And then on YouTube, also see Ernst Harth. If you just put in my name, I have all the everything I've ever done, all the commercials, all my films, the films that are available to watch on YouTube, I have on my page, all the short films I've done. I've got two new films that I've produced that are out. One's called Joe Finds Grace, and another one's called Exuvia. One is a coming of age story about a young boy in the summer he spends with a troublesome nanny that teaches him, how to grow up. And then the other one is, how did we describe it before? It's if Woody Allen was to reshoot The Elephant Man as a road movie with parts of it are like Scanner Darkly. So if that makes any sense to anybody, it's the most bizarre film you've ever seen. It's shot in black and white, but the characters' dream sequences and flashbacks are all in color animation. And the lead character has elephantiasis, so he's got like the elephant man's disease. So, and he's basically searching for his lost sister. It's got it's got bizarre humor, bizarre languages. It's filled with slapstick, but also drama. It's a film like you've never seen before. And if you check it out, it's called Joe Finds Grace. I recommend watching it with the closed captioning because many parts of the film have a language of their own. And you'll get to see me. I'm one of the leads in that as well. But those are two films that we produced that are on our site. And I'm also C. Ernst Harth on Instagram, but because I don't have a cell phone, I don't use that one as much. I know I'm one of those weirdos who has a landline and an answering machine, but a what? A Luddite. Yeah, well, that's also why my that's why my video screen is so blurry. I look like I'm being shot through mayonnaise because I got an old computer.
Well, the fact that you still got a landline, I respect that because half the people I know don't even know what that is. I
Yeah,
do.
yeah. I the last time I had a cell phone was when they were just phones. You know, that's how long it had a little plastic Motorola plastic antenna that you'd pull out and didn't seem to really do anything, but you'd still pull it out because it's there.
Yeah.
And it was a flip phone too, and it was a brick. So that's the last phone I had. I here's a fact for your audience. I have never mind receive. I have never sent a text
Dang.
ever my whole life. I don't even know how to do that.
I'm going to say that is probably the first time I've heard that, and I am fascinated by the fact that and that is awesome. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, my agent would say to me, "You do realize you're the only actor left on my roster who doesn't have a cell phone." And I'd always say to her, "Well, considering I didn't have a cell phone when I joined your roster, nothing's changed.
Right.
It's all good.
Oh yeah.
How am I going to get a hold of you? Call me. And if I'm not there, leave a message, like we
Right.
used to."
Oh yeah.
No, and I've got a film. I did a cameo in a film called Riding Shotgun. It's a horror road movie, and it's trans producer and a bunch of trans actors, and it's a very diverse film. And they asked me to, they're fans of 13 Ghosts and fans of the different horror films I've done. So they asked me to come out and do a little cameo on that. So I'm looking forward to that. And then also, I have some music videos that are out right now. Noble Sun has one called Hold Your Horses, and then Melody Whore has one called Thick as Thieves. And like I said, those are all on my YouTube page. You can check those out. I'm always sticking myself in something. If it's a music video, or I've got two animated films. There's characters, they've been around for 60 years in Europe, called Asterix and Obelix, and I play Obelix. I'm now the new English voice of Obelix, so I've done two feature films as him, and so those films, there's links to those films on my page as well. So trying to get into a little of everything out there.
Oh yeah. Well, you have a very impressive roster of films, and we haven't even touched the surface of all of them. So
Yeah.
you are more than welcome on the show anytime. And
Okay.
I mean, if you want to come back, we'll talk about movies we haven't spoken about, TV shows and stuff. And I just want you to know that as a fan of film, there are certain people out there who play these characters to where they play them to they play them like it's an art piece, you know. And I will say that everything I've seen you in, from the X Files on up, phenomenal. I'm a
Thank
fan.
you.
I'm always going to be a fan, and I'm probably going to spend a lot of money getting a lot of autographs because I need one for every character you've done. You've done, so, you know. But nah, it's just keep doing what you're doing because you are bringing joy and excitement and entertainment to people, and for that, I respect you and I say thank you.
And thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this show, because it helps everyone get the word out.
Oh yeah. Uh, well, we're gonna end it here. I want to thank you, Mr. Harth, for
Thank
coming
you.
on, and you guys be good. And until next time, if you see a man wearing underwear, they might just be a gold thong under there, so be careful. Everybody stay NC-17.